Welcome back into the film room. I'm your host, Eric Turner. It's another, Tuesday, Victory Tuesday, right, Nate? Victory Tuesday.
I'm used to them, brother.
Yeah, it's, and don't fret, it's the end of the regular season. The Bills went 13-3, so that means we have a whole nother season ahead of us next week, starting with the Colts. But we're going to finish this season off strong with a great film breakdown of Josh Allen versus the Miami Dolphins, Nate. So what were your thoughts on this game, and how does 13-3 feel?
Well, I wanted it. It's why I wanted to see the starters play. We'll talk a little bit about some of the benefits I think that they ultimately got from this game by playing their starters extended minutes and snaps in this game. And overall, start to finish, I felt myself after this game talking to Aaron Quinn about just how underrated the special teams is. That's kind of what this game turned into for me, is a real appreciative effort of some of the highlights this team has outside of the blue chip, the guys that make the news, the guys that are going to be in the MVP discussion like Josh Allen. I thought Isaiah McKenzie played one of those games that Sean McDermott kind of talks about players being able to have on this team and in this organization. I think, a game like we saw from Isaiah McKenzie this week really, I think, sends home and really hammers home what Sean McDermott talks about with these guys, right? Like that you're your best version of yourself. And he mentioned that after the game. And I think for me, this just kind of goes down as one of those kinds of games where you score 56 points. They were a few points away from setting a franchise record for points in a game. And, overall, it was the kind of performance you wanted to see them put together, a week before they headed to the wild card run of the playoffs.
Yeah, and it was a matchup, obviously the second matchup with the Dolphins, and it was the defensive approach from Miami, I thought, was completely different than what we saw in the first matchup. Week 2 against the Dolphins, that's when the Bills were still being tested, and Josh Allen really was being tested if he could throw against man coverage. And, what better test than the Miami Dolphins secondary? I know they lost Jones in that game, but, they still tried testing him with that man coverage approach, and he torched him. Well, this game was completely different. They only play man coverage 9 of 27 Josh Allen's dropbacks, and that's 33%. So in week 2, it was 68%. So it was a lot less man coverage. But the problem is, in this game, when they did drop, go to man coverage, those 9 times, 5 times Josh Allen completed passes for 77 yards and 3 touchdowns. So it was a lower amount of volume in man coverage, but Josh still took advantage of that. And a lot of that has to do with Isaiah McKenzie and the matchup problem that he presented, slightly different from Cole Beasley, right, Nate?
I'd say so. Yeah. I think the difference in the style of play that you're getting, the type of speed that you're getting, in those two, I think is really what makes him unique, right? I think Cole Beasley is the kind of guy that can really get open and create separation, not with speed or necessarily athleticism, but with precision route running, the kind of guy that can create separation. But I think with Isaiah McKenzie, although I would say a fine route runner, he's not as precise. He's not going to, move guys, and he doesn't have that same level of leverage understanding that you get from Beasley. But I do think that the straight line speed makes him a unique asset to the offense. And I said this to you before the podcast, well, what if Cole Beasley can't play in this game? And I say, as much as, of course, anytime you don't have, I think, the second best pass catching threat in your offense available, I think that's a disadvantage. But I think that because it's the playoffs, it's a new time of year. I wonder just how much film a team like the Colts would have on Isaiah McKenzie,
Sure.
And their ability to try to figure out what the Bills would do with him in the lineup.
Yeah, and I like your point on the differences between McKenzie and Cole Beasley. I think McKenzie has, as you said, he's grown and he's developed, and that's something that we love to see. But he will stretch the field a little more, and I think that caught the Dolphins off guard, as you'll see on some of these plays. So obviously we're on Cole Beasley watch, and I think it's very important, and we're going to talk about why at the end of the show when we start looking at the future matchup against the Colts. But in this game, I thought, the first quarter, I think everyone will agree that the Bills struggled. The Bills offense struggled, and that's kind of why you said, you were happy that they played a good amount of reps that first half pretty much, because in that first quarter they struggled, and specifically, and something we're going to go over in the film is against those amoeba type looks where you have everyone pretty much in a 2-point stance moving around. That's what the Dolphins are known for. It really creates havoc, or generally creates havoc for the offensive line and protecting the quarterback. But in this game, I thought the offensive line in those situations did a pretty good job of sorting it out. And I think that it really affected Elam more than the offensive line. What were your thoughts on that look? And is that something that you expect going forward in the playoffs?
Yeah, how about, I think the funny part about that game last week that with those, listen, I went into that game thinking that the Dolphins were frauds. I left the game thinking the Dolphins were frauds. And the most important thing I left that game thinking was, that's your defensive player of the year that everyone's talking about. And during the broadcast in the first half, all they're doing is talking about, oh my God, look at these standing defenders. Like it's like something that somebody in the NFL has never done before. This is the first time
the Wildcat was just busted back out or something, right?
Right? Like, oh my God, I've never seen so many defensive linemen standing at one time. Holy cow. And, I think for the first couple of drives, it definitely, but the Bills were prepared for that look. That's not something that's new to the Bills. I mean, this is a look that, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, really gave Justin Herbert fits and was his worst game of the season. So, this is a defense that was number one in scoring coming into this game. And they left, I think, third or fourth. That just tells you the kind of game that the Bills were able to have against them. And I think for me, the one thing that I continue to think about this offense and what you can sort of take into this next game is with this Colts team, you're definitely not going to see, and I think for me, you're not going to see the same competence on the outside at corner. I do think that they might have one of the best front fours on the defense. Leonard's a stud at linebacker. So this team right up the middle is pretty darn good. DeForest Buckner is right up there for maybe defensive player of the year candidate. He's been that good coming over from San Francisco. So for me, that's not really where the Bills are vulnerable and or where you can hurt them offensively. And that's where, to me, in this matchup, I just don't think they got the guns to cover these Bills receivers, even if you have Cole Beasley out of the lineup. I think Xavier Rhodes is a good physical corner, but tell me that Stephon Diggs isn't going to want that matchup because he went against Xavier Rhodes every single day in practice for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wants that matchup. He knows that he's going to know exactly how to go one-on-one against Xavier Rhodes. So that's a matchup I'm really looking forward to. But for me in this particular matchup, I'm very happy just in terms of playoffs, right? I'm really happy that Sean McDermott decided to play the guys that he decided to play. I love that Trey White and, you were able to pick and choose a couple of guys that you just absolutely don't throw on the field, but keeping that starting offense together and letting them work through some of the issues they were having early in this game. I think part of them were communication driven. And I think other parts were they just didn't execute at the level that they did for the rest of the game. So for me, it comes down to, ultimate. Oh, and I got my UFC match going on again.
It started right back up. I love it.
Yeah, this started early in the podcast. But yeah, no, ultimately, I think the struggles are really good because now that's the freshest thing on their mind is working through those struggles in the first game of the playoffs. My biggest thing is I didn't want the bye week. I know a lot of people talked about, well, is it unfair that the Bills have to play on Saturday versus Sunday? Should they wanted the bye week? Should, if you were the second seed last year, you would have gotten the bye week. Me, I hate the bye week, especially with the context of how well this team is playing. But when they're playing this well, it's just like the Titans last year. The best teams, those wild card teams that play their best football, they got to win 5 straight to make the playoffs. Those are the dangerous teams every year because they're sort of going in hot. They don't have to remanufacture like I think Kansas City's going to have to do. Kansas City's going to have to sort of remake themselves. They're going to have to turn that switch on because the last kind of memories we have of Kansas City is them almost losing to the Atlanta Falcons. So the Bills don't have to turn on any switch. They're ready to go day one. And I think for me, getting that adversity last week in the first quarter was the best thing that could happen to the Bills.
Yeah, those adjustments and really kind of resetting because the scheme from Brian Daboll was quite vanilla. And you're going to see, because we're going to look at the 3 third downs in the first quarter. They were 1 for 3 on third downs. And the only first down that they converted off a third was that first one. It was a 3rd and 4 situation. And Josh Allen pumped it a few times at Diggs and still fit it in there. So they were 1 for 3 in the first quarter. And it was against those amoeba looks. But it really got, it forced them to get back to what they do well. Some of their base concepts, a lot of those option routes to Diggs, hitches outside, short in-breaking routes to Diggs, putting the ball in that playmaker's hands, having him do some stuff with the ball in his hands, and even some checkdowns and outlet throws to Knox out in the flats, let him gain 10 yards. Like, they went back to the basics, and it was a good reset, because it's something that we talked about back in the Titans game, where early on he just wanted to go for 10, 15, 20-yard throws when really he should have just taken what was in front of him. And I think that's what they reset back to at the end of the first quarter, the very last play, and then going into the second quarter. And then he just started rolling, and it was, they never looked back. And so, those amoeba looks are something that I'm sure other teams are going to replicate and try to show, just because of how it gave Josh Allen fits as far as how the secondary was spinning. But it's something that it also reminds me of, someone mentioned the Patriots did it a lot against them. It's totally true. But I also flashed back to the Green Bay game years ago when the Bills and Josh Allen were in Green Bay, and Josh was seeing ghosts that day. There were guys like not even blitzing him, and he was just bailing the pocket against those type of amoeba type looks. And it's obvious that, he came a long way. He's a lot more poised in the pocket in this game versus those looks. But I think the way that the secondary was spinning kind of gave him some issues. So, I thought he handled that well, just by getting back to what they do well, those, short passes underneath, and letting his guys and his weapons do some damage after the catch. And then just bringing in some of those formations, not being so spread out, kind of like the Steelers game a few weeks ago, where, after that first quarter or first half, they're like, okay, we're going to bring the tight ends and running backs in. We're going to keep them in protection. If you want to do those amoeba looks, if you want to show those cover zero looks and try to spin your coverage, well, guess what? Can you cover the guys on the outside one-on-one? And the Steelers couldn't. Not many teams could. And, the Dolphins couldn't even do it against the backups.
The best duo of cornerbacks in the league couldn't really stand up. I mean, your point about they couldn't do it against the backups. I mean, Gabe Davis ends up with a 53.5-yard average after this game, 2 catches, 107 yards and a touchdown. And like, there were times where Matt Barkley was looking like let Barkley cook, right? That's how, that's to me, they spent a lot of money on those corners to put them on islands, right? Like, that's the defense that Brian Flores wanted to be able to deploy week in and week out, is be able to put those guys on islands. And I think if you're Josh Allen and you're this Bills offense, what you did in the part of that second quarter where you basically scored 28 points is you forced them out of their looks. And I think that's the real sign of a offense that I think can go places, right? Is when you force a team who's number one in scoring out of their base looks because you're simply too difficult to stop. And I think it bodes well for the playoffs. But, I think because ultimately, they're going to play a Colts team they didn't play this year. They're going to see some different looks that they haven't seen this year from a Colts defense that I think is very physical up front, but they're not particularly good against physical teams. And I don't think the Bills offense is super physical. I think they are more of a finesse group. But I think this week you could see them, use a little more Zach Moss, try to get physical with this front, because although they've got big guys up there, in particular DeForest Buckner, they don't play particularly well when teams want to get physical with them. So I think that'll be the interesting thing for me to see this week, is how do they handle playing a team that is definitely going to be a little, they're just a unique group. I was kind of hoping for the Colts. I don't know where you start on this.
Yeah.
I was hoping for the Colts, but I think at the same time, and mostly it's because I wanted to see Phillip, play in 30 degrees and hopefully a little swirling wind. I want to see what that arm's got left. But ultimately, this is a good defense, but not great.
Yeah, and so we're going to go back to this game, the Dolphins game, and, supposedly this was, the number 1 D in the league. So we're going to take a look at some of these plays here. We're going to start with this first play. Again, it's a 3rd and 4 situation. This is the very first 3rd down in the game. You see everyone standing up in and around the box, and eventually once the ball snapped, they're just going to drop out into a Tampa 2. So you see here's the inner triangle right here, and basically what they sent off the edge was Howard comes off the edge, and the slot corner comes off the edge. And so it's not a blitz. It's still it's a creeper pressure. It's a simulated pressure where only 4 guys are really rushing. And then you get everyone dropping out into a Tampa 2 look. And you see Josh, it's pretty good protection. He just pumps it several times right there. And he's trying to get a read on this hook to curl defender, wall defender. And then you see Byron Jones just kind of sitting there waiting for Josh to make a decision here. He has 2 options, high or low option here. But as John Brown's breaking to the middle, you see the deep hole linebacker right here is kind of in that passing window. So he's kind of he's kind of caught in between a rock and a hard place here, and he pumps it several times. And that arm strength from the hash with Howard, I don't know how he got this pass off. Howard breathing down his neck. That quick trigger comes in hand here, and he's able to complete it to Diggs for a first down. Again, this was the only first down, a third down conversion that they had in the first quarter against these amoeba looks, and it's because of Josh kind of playing above the scheme and is able to find Diggs on this play, Nate.
Yeah, and Byron Jones is lucky on this play too, because he was trying to play the best of both worlds. And I think if Dawson Knox is able to get a better piece of Xavier Howard, I do think that Josh feels Xavier Howard, but I'm not sure he totally knows how close. He is to making this play. And I think ultimately, based on where the leverage of Byron Jones is, I might be trying to make a play to John Brown, who's opening that nice window right there. But like Josh does a great job of finding the sticks. And he pumps like 4 or 5 times on this play. So it's not really meant to move a defender or anything, but I think he was kind of just waiting for that window to open up. And he was definitely lucky that Xavier Howard didn't come in for the hit. I don't know what he was trying to do. I think he was trying to go only for ball. And instead of trying to get physical with Josh Allen, I don't blame him. I probably wouldn't try to get physical with Josh Allen.
Yeah, right.
Howard. I think this is a great job by Allen, but he's got to be careful in those instances. There's a couple times this week and then this prior week and the week before that too, where there's a couple of times where you're kind of watching, you see the edge rusher beat the edge to the outside on his blind side, and he just doesn't feel it or see it. Those are the types of plays where you're going to cough the ball up, or you're going to throw it, and while you get hit and you throw an interception. So those are could be negative plays. He's got to be careful and sort of keep that presence of mind. He's got those defenders creeping out around the edge.
Yeah, and I know the final note for this is, again, the pass protection for the most part on the day was really well, and this is a protection where they keep the tight end and running back in, and the 2 guys off the edge are pretty much, coming, well, at least one of them's coming free. And that's what these simulated and creeper pressures do. They're going to show blitz. They're going to have lots of guys moving around, but then they're going to send, unusual blitzers, guys from, non-traditional spots, corner, linebacker, safety, and they're going to drop other guys out, non-traditional coverage guys such as DNs, D tackles. And you see that happen here. And it's a way for the defense to create havoc, create pressure, but not really sacrifice coverage on the backside. So anytime you hear us say simulated pressure, creeper pressure, it's still a 4-man rush, but what 4 guys is coming is really what the crux of the issue is versus the protection. So something to keep an eye on going forward. Creeper and simulated pressures are how teams are going to have to beat Josh Allen in this offense, because they cannot play down a man or 2 on the back end if they want to bring pressure, whether that's 5 or 6-man rush. You just can't live in that realm, in that world.
You have to scheme to beat him. You can't rely on one-on-ones. You can't rely, and that is a testament to Josh Allen. But I love that point, because if you're trying to rely on one-on-one matchups, or you're trying to rely on we're good with running man or zone, you're going to lose Josh Allen either as a runner or as a passer. He's making that many plays right now, and I think for me, you're spot on. You're going to have to manufacture pressure by confusing the offensive line and confusing Josh Allen. Where you can beat Josh Allen, just like you can beat most quarterbacks not named Tom Brady, is between the ears. But Josh is really closing that margin for error when teams are trying to beat him upstairs. And here's I think the other thing too on a play like that is more and more as Josh Allen starts to become better and better as a field general and between the ears and at the line of scrimmage, teams are going to have a tougher and tougher time even trying to scheme up those looks. So I think that's where he's really starting to bridge the gap, is I think he's figured out so many things. The one thing that he's starting to really hone in on is the stuff between the ears. And that's where defenses, or at least good defensive coordinators, are going to start to try to beat Josh, because it's really the only place other than, like I said, the only guy named Tom Brady. Other than him, everyone else has those mental or the ability to get these guys between the ears schematically. So I think that's where you're going to have to try to beat Josh. And I just don't think there's that many. Matt Eberflus is a very good defensive coordinator this week. We'll see what he does. But this is a good defensive team and a Brian Flores coach defense. And what they were able to do after they punched Josh in the mouth, he really was able to sort of put them back on their heels. And I love that flip of the dynamic.
Yeah, and Sterling's right. We talked about some of the adjustments that the staff made. And I love your point about, Josh Allen being punched in the mouth, the offense, being punched in the mouth here. And this is the interception. That is a play that we always talk about with Josh, especially early. He's like I've said a few weeks ago, the aggressive Josh Allen is the best Josh Allen. It's the best version of him. And that's why he's set some of the records he has this year. But early in the game, when you're still trying to feel out the defense, like this is one of those plays where you just want to take what the defense is giving you. And what they're giving you is a short in-breaking route to Stephon Diggs to the bottom of the screen out of a Tampa 2 look. But instead, he bypasses that because he's looking down the field, and he comes back late to the 2 hitches, 2 stop routes at the top of the screen. And then that's why it's intercepted. It's just a bad decision from Josh. He held the ball too long on this play. I mean, he had great protection, don't get me wrong, but you got to make a decision against this kind of coverage, and you can't come back late especially against corners like Xavier Howard and Byron Jones.
Yeah, although I thought all day, neither of them were really able to keep up with the Bills receivers, even their backups. I do think that, you can't give them opportunities, and you can't give defenses opportunities to get good field position, to put your defense at a disadvantage. And I think the one thing that we can agree on, that one of the reasons this Bills defense is playing much better, is they're not being put in difficult positions like they were against Tennessee, like they were against Kansas City. Like those are important. That's important for the offense to help your defense by not giving up bad field position. In this type of play, you're putting your defense in a tough spot in an important game. So there's just something to think about with it when you're Josh. And like you're right here, if you're going to come this late over to the left side, just take you the easiest throw, which is Isaiah McKenzie on this play. Just throw it to the outside shoulder, lead him towards the sideline, take your 3, 4, 5 yards in a cloud of dust, and get to third down. This is a play of wanting a little too much, but too late in his sequencing.
Yeah, and again, you nailed it, man. You put your defense in a bind here with the ball on, just inside the 45-yard line, nearly the 40, and I think they held them to a field goal here, but that's especially. Yeah, especially like when you're playing against a Tua, when you're playing against a Phillip Rivers, like force them to work the field, force them to drive all the way down the field. Don't do this to your defense, even though they are playing well. Don't put your defense in that spot. So on to the next play, first quarter, 6:05 on the clock. The Bills are now down 3-0, and 3rd and 8 situation. And this is another one of those amoeba looks. And this time, instead of showing that amoeba look and then dropping into zone, they show a 6-man pressure. So they bring extra guys and they have a robber. And this is what I meant by, Brian Daboll kind of playing, quite vanilla, because this is a dagger concept that that bottom route right here by Diggs, deep dig route over the middle. This is something the Bills, you're going to run this twice a game. It's one of their base concepts. And so they weren't really trying to show too much. This is not a schemed play. None of these third down plays that we've seen that you see in the first quarter against the Dolphins were really schemed plays like you normally see. Like, okay, this is what they normally play on third down in coverage. We're going to attack that coverage. No, this is like, we're going to run this. We're going to just let the reads come to Josh. And this is a really nice 6-man pressure. And the key guy is this guy right here. So they're in man coverage. Everyone's manned up right here, right? And everyone's covered. But the robber over the middle of the field who's sitting right on that logo, watch him play low to high. He's waiting for that in-breaking route. It's almost like he knows the play is coming. Here's Diggs on the in-breaking route. It's all taken away. So Josh really has nowhere to go. So what does he try to do? He tries hitting Knox on that deep over route. Well, that defender gets in a really good trail technique, gets into that back hip pocket. So now Josh, he's not going to just try to throw him out this way. And this almost reminiscent of the touchdown that Knox caught against the Patriots, I believe it was last year, on a similar route. Well, Josh, instead of trying to throw him towards the boundary, he tries just, kind of leading him up the numbers a little bit, kind of like what he did to Matt Barkley did for Gabriel Davis later in the game. And, it's an attempted pass, but it's at the very least a throwaway on this play, and live to fight another down, because there's really no one open here. And it's not necessarily because of Josh Allen or his decisions or his reads, really just good coverage and a good play call by the Dolphins against a vanilla concept from Brian Daboll.
Yeah, and if you're watching film on the Bills defensively, you better know that the crossers are coming, especially if you're going to bring pressure looks, and especially if you're going to run man, and you're a team that runs a lot of man. Those are things that they're likely expecting in the game plan if you're watching anything of the Bills. But I think on this play too, we talked about this like his rookie season. The one thing about arm strength like Josh Allen's is, you're not going to see always the generic, throw at the feet of the nearest offensive player. This is as good of a throwaway as you might get during the sequence of a game, because he's going to give himself an opportunity for 6 points while also keeping it away from really any primary defenders. And like you said, he doesn't force a throw in a tight window. Maybe he can come backside here to Isaiah McKenzie, but that is going to be a tough throw coming down that way and leading him with enough velocity and arc to give him the opportunity to turn upfield. So like at the end of the day, this was the right decision. It was the right throw. And, you know, at the end of the day, right, like just take your poison. You know, we know, and I think this team offensively too, I wonder in the back of their minds with how well Corey Bojorquez is playing. And I remember in high school, I had a really good punter. He went Division I, and was a really good punter. And you know that on third down, if you're in your own zone, you could be a little bit more aggressive, right? Like on a third down play where instead of trying to force it into a window, like let's just try to get the score here. Let's go for a 6 because I don't have anything else open underneath. And with how well Corey Bojorquez is switching field positions, I wonder if that plays in the mind of on a play like this where you've got a weapon as a punter. Let's just don't put this anywhere near a defender. If someone has a chance to go get it, it's your player. And like this on this play, the only guy that's close enough to make a play here is Dawson Knox.
Yeah, and good blocking. I mean, this is a heck of a job up front between the offensive line and Zach Moss just stones Jerome Baker right there. This is not easy stuff. You see all these guys moving around. I thought they just did a great job of sorting it out, not being, because they like to do a lot of aggressive sets. They like to set as close as they can to the line of scrimmage. Well, you have to be patient against these type of looks here. And again, I don't think the Colts, from what I've seen and research, the Colts don't really show these type of looks. But you better be ready for it if the Bills get past that first round, because other teams are going to try this stuff. But I thought the offensive line did a great job, and Botker, Morse, and Darrell Williams, I believe, were the 3 guys that played 64 snaps each. So getting extra reps for them, especially Botker, against this type of defense and this type of scheme was good to see, and I thought they held up really well in this game. So on to the next play, end of the first quarter, 1st and 10 situation. So the three third downs are out of the way now. This is the very last play of the quarter, and it's just a play that, again, the coordinator, Brian Dable, is in 12 personnel. He sends out 12 here and, does a little shift right here, brings both the tight ends in just to see whether it's man or zone coverage. Looks like zone coverage, and they're just going to run a little play action pass, but it's covered quite well. You'll see the defense drop out into a cover 3 type look here after the play action pass, and there's really no one open. The windows are closed. It's a 2-man route. And just watch Stephon Diggs just immediately realize, okay, Josh hit the top of his drop. Brown's not open. I need to get open. I come back to the ball, and, they pick up 5 yards. And, I saw someone early on, Jeremiah, had mentioned about, hey, would you guys show the point differential? But to me, it's not even just a point differential. It's the Bills' ability to control the clock, time of possession, and get first downs, 20 first downs in every game this year or more. And it's without a run game. So they're controlling the clock and minus a run game. And that bodes well in the playoffs, because if they cannot run the ball, having an offense that can dink and dunk their way, get open outside of plays, outside of structure, inside of structure, having guys come back to the ball and be QB friendly, like this is stuff that keeps the offense on the field, right, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, it may seem like 5 yards, but 2nd and 5 compared to 2nd and 10, just look at the numbers and the success rate of teams who can get a good positive play, especially a play of 5 or more yards on first down. So this right here just plays into the numbers. This suggests success can be had because on 2nd down and 5, think about the playbook options that Brian Dable has on a 2nd and 5 situation compared to a 2nd and 10. And we know this team does not like to run the ball on 2nd down, or especially on 2nd and 10 situations.
Yes.
So now they've got opportunities to run the ball with success and get themselves a first down and move the chain. So what this play does is it sets up so much more. And I love how Stephon Diggs, this is instinctual. He hits the top of his route. He doesn't wait around. He's not slowing down. This is something that I want Gabriel Davis to watch, because a couple of times you see Gabriel Davis just sort of slow down. And in this offense with this quarterback in particular, you're doing yourself and the offense a huge disservice if you don't continue to keep your head on a swivel and continue playing, because the quarterback is going to continue to play. The quarterback's going to continue buying time, and there isn't a throw he can't make on the field. So if you're a wide receiver and you're going to play for Josh Allen and you're going to see time, you better know that at the top of your route, if Josh Allen hasn't thrown you the ball, go find another opening. And I love the scramble rules right away. Just he knows right when he's on such a good wavelength with his quarterback that he knows where he needs to get to make a successful play. And I know we're breaking down a 5-yard play like it's a touchdown, but really at the end of the day, plays like this are what make this team so successful. But more importantly, this is what sustainability looks like.
Yes, this is how the offense stays on the field, and as he said, sustains drives. So on to the next play. Now we're at the top of the second quarter, 2nd and 1 situation here, and this is the RPO play action type play. Simple pass over the middle. I say simple. It looks simple, but I'll let you talk about the play design and just the throw from Josh Allen through traffic. So you see the little back side guard is pulling from the top of the screen. Here's a little fake right here. Everyone looks like they're blocking downhill, and Diggs is just sneaking right past Howard, and then they're in the red zone just that quickly. Nate, talk about the play design and Josh Allen's throw here. And I want you to pay attention to the play design because you have the formation into the boundary. So 3 eligibles to the left side of the screen here, and this same side power look, this same side RPO play action type look is important because it's going to draw this guy downhill. It's going to draw his eyes against the run with Dawson Knox blocking here, and it's especially going to draw that linebacker to jump into his run fit and bring those guys downhill, and then just a throw through traffic on point from Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think what I like more about is if you look at this defensive back number 21, who's kind of squatting right here, and he's going to be the guy that creates the window for Stephon Diggs. What I love about this is, I'd say, frankly, if I'm a defensive coordinator, I really like how he played this. I think he gives himself an opportunity to make a play on either decision from the quarterback, and that's really all you can ask for from that defender. So for me, I thought he played it pretty well. The problem is Josh Allen's patient, and he knows where he's going to beat you, and he understands where you are. But more importantly, Josh Allen understands where you aren't and where you can't be. And that's the leverage game that this offense has been playing. And I think it's the one thing that gives them an edge is just their ability to understand where the windows are. Josh Allen in his head pre-snap knows this can't be the first window. If this is the first window, he's thrown it in the chest of that defender, who does a good job of bailing. If he throws that like every other throw, right? And he doesn't wait for that window for him to cross the face of the defender, but the ball's out with anticipation. The ball is out before he crosses the face of the defender. So again, we're talking about a slant route. We're talking about a pretty simple RPO concept, but how it's executed is so darn good because of the understanding of leverage and where this play needed to hit. And with the anticipation that he throws this with, it's just a thing of beauty for a 5-yard slant route.
Yeah, I mean, I like the design. I like the throw. I mean, the trust in his arm. I mean, remember years ago when, everyone's complaining about, Tyrod Taylor isn't throwing over the middle. He doesn't like throwing slant routes early in Josh Allen's career. Oh, they don't run slant routes. Well, they didn't have guys that could separate like Stephon Diggs does against Howard here. And Allen didn't have trust that guy, Diggs is going to catch it. No, he's not going to trust, he didn't trust Kelvin Benjamin. He didn't trust Zay Jones. I mean, just night and day talent paired up with Josh Allen, and then you see that confidence, and he's playing with that swagger.
That's pitch and catch.
Yeah, man, and it's a totally different quarterback now, and it's so much fun to watch from what we've seen a couple of years ago. So halfway through the second quarter, 2nd down situation, 2nd in the chains basically, and this is one of those plays that Flores threw at Josh, sort of like Belichick does, where it looks like man coverage, right? You saw Byron Jones come across the formation to match up with the receiver. So it's corners over. You have all 3 of the corners to the top of the screen against the 3 receivers. So it looks like man coverage. But you'll see after what happens and what the coverage actually drops into, because they actually drop into zone here. So they tried fooling Josh Allen on this play post-snap, and the Bills were hoping that it would stay in man coverage because they had those crossers called, and they love that against man coverage. So Josh is looking to those crossers, and I think it's McKenzie and Dawson Knox that are running those crossing routes. But post snap, they just drop out into cover 3. So you have a single high safety. You got your two corners deep, and then your 4 underneath players. So I mean, they showed him something different post snap. The picture changes, and Josh is still looking down the field, and he probably could have just taken the little option route to dig right here, or even just your little outlet to the running back. But with pressure deep on that deep drop, he just climbs the pocket. And then you see McKenzie, instead of continuing across the field here into traffic with these 3 defenders, he says, no, I'm just going to sit right near the hashes and uncover and wait for Josh Allen to find me. And he does, and Josh does find him. And just, I mean, a hell of a throw from the end zone angle, Nate. I mean, talk about this throw as he breaks contain here and how good of a job he does of manipulating, because it looks right now, if you look at his helmet, it kind of looks like he's holding this defender right here. He's almost looking through him and maybe even to the safety over this way, but obviously he's throwing it over here. Just a great job of manipulating the coverage here and finding the open man outside of script.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, let me just comment on the fact that, you've got your 5th receiver who's coming in a game and making the impact that he's making in this game. For him to be on the same page with his quarterback as a 5th receiver is so rare in the NFL. And I think you said it before we went in here, how he's sort of somebody that you heard compared Isaiah McKenzie to Nicole Hardman, or Mecole Hardman, I'm sorry, from Kansas City, and kind of what he does in that offense is, they manufacture some touches for him, but he's got that straight line speed. And on a play like this is, well, first, I mean, this pocket manipulation is as sexy as it gets. Yeah. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. And, keeping the ball 2 hands. Here's the other thing, 2 hands on the ball. Like, that has been the biggest
pumping motion of his arms to help him bring his stride up and up into the pocket to shift his weight. Like, this is
Peyton Manning school of pocketry right here. Okay. Like like, seriously, that is as good as it gets. And the improvement that we've seen. And that's the kind of thing that you see a guy going from as a guy who wants to run the football to a guy that wants to protect the football so that he can make a play with his arm. And now he's doing all the mechanics that he's learning in the offseason with Jordan Palmer. He's applying them in game situations, and he's a better quarterback because of it. But the whole point about Isaiah McKenzie on this is understanding the leverage and finding the space in the zone when you're on a crossing route. Is a really high-level play, a high-level nuance and mental play for your 5th receiver stepping in and basically being the best player on the field. It's just, to me, that is coaching. It's preparation, and the fact that your quarterback and its 5th receiver can be on this type of communication level is why the Bills are 13-3.
Yeah, and it's a great decision by Josh. And as I said, they change the coverage and the defense drops out in a cover 3. And I think Josh is really trying to hit knocks here. And I'm glad he didn't stick with it as long as he probably wanted to, because that defender off to the right side of the screen is Byron Jones. He was in the slot on McKenzie. He drops out into that underneath area, that hook to curl area. And I think that's where Josh was looking initially. And I'm glad he comes off of that, climbs the pocket, pumps up into the pocket there. And then, I mean, he's out the back door. And I mean, just a heck of a throw. And we talked about his confidence and his swagger, man. If he stays on that type of cloud and type of play, going into the playoffs, boy, I mean, defense have to watch out, because he's grooving right now. He's vibing, man. And this is a play from last year, and this is really setting up an audible that Josh, checked into against the Dolphins. And so it's a 3rd down situation, and you're going to see the Bills in a trip set to the bottom of the screen, and Josh thinks he sees cover 0 here. And so you see him get up to the line of scrimmage. He calls what is it's called trench. It's the audible for this play. And a lot of people will recognize this play because this route combination, this 3-man route combination is generally referred to as double China 7. And Josh wants to hit Cole Beasley right here on this corner route versus what he thinks is cover 0. This is McCourty on him. It's really not a bad decision by him to check into this play and to get rid of the ball to Beasley, throw it to, it's kind of a safe throw here, but you'll see, he has underneath help here. So he's got to, get the ball up and over to Beasley, and then he's got to get it, into a soft area right here along the boundary away from McCourty. So it's a tough throw. It goes incomplete. And I remember a lot of fans, complaining about this. Why? Because they had 2 in-breaking routes over the middle, Zay Jones and John Brown. And a lot of people were mad. Hey, 3rd down, you're across into the Patriots zone. And why is Josh missing this pass and these wide open receivers when John Brown cooks Stephon Gilmore? Well, remember that play. And now let's flash forward to this 2nd and 10 situation. Bill, you see Josh Allen, same situation, trip set to the top of the screen, and he calls Trench. And if you listen to the broadcast copy, he calls Trench again, and this time you see Stephon Diggs. He's trying to get to Diggs, and Diggs gets caught in traffic. He's got a really good cover corner, Xavier Howard on him. So that's not open. He doesn't want to throw to this guy. So what does he do? This time he learned from his mistakes. He gets to another option, and he simply throws a nice low ball to John Brown on the in-breaking route. Again, another short yardage throw, 4 or 5 yard gain, but he's learned from his mistakes. It's the same play, and he just finds a different read in this option, in this progression, Nate. It's just one of those great learning moments that you can see on film. If you're tracking him, you're seeing these same plays, these same audibles versus cover zero type looks. Dable giving his guy answers, and now Josh is actually mature enough to understand, I got to move to my second and third option.
That, and man, it's just such an advantage to have John Brown. And when you can have these 3 wide sets, especially to the boundary like this, where you can have John Brown, Cole Beasley, and Stephon Diggs, all guys who can separate, all really great route runners, all capable of beating you man up. It's just such an advantage for this offense. And right as you were kind of explaining that, I just was thinking about how unique this team is with how much the frequency in which they target their receivers. I think it's more than anybody in the league. And this is why they're just so deep at the position. Yep. You lose your best slot guy. Isaiah McKenzie walks in, and it's like they didn't miss a beat against the number 1 scoring defense in the league. But yeah, the development, I talk about it every week, it feels like, but the layers, right? Like this is, although that this is the same play, and I'm sure this is a pretty standard play in their playbook. These are the types of plays where you can layer in success. If you can start having success, this is where you can add in additional things on a play like this, and maybe create an additional look off of this. So what I like about this ultimately is Josh Allen. This is, I think, probably a good play to just say, look at the development, right? And I think I always tell people to go back and watch the Green Bay game if they want to know just how far Josh Allen's come. And you talked about him seeing ghosts. I totally agree in that game. And it's like, these are the sorts of plays too that really show in almost real time how far he's come as a processor, even more so than just an accurate passer.
Yeah, it was again one of those moments that a lot of outsiders, they're all over the Josh Allen bandwagon right now, and by all means I love it. But
listen, one of the things that I always go back to, and I always remember this particular sentence. It's from Trent Dilfer, right? And Trent Dilfer was on with Rich Eisen, and he said, when people say Josh Allen's accurate or inaccurate, he's like, I don't think he's inaccurate at all. I think that we are judging quarterbacks on the wrong metrics to determine accuracy. And he basically went on to say, if you want to look at completion percentage, it's truly an offensive efficiency. It's a passing efficiency stat rather than a true barometer of accuracy.
Sure.
And that couldn't make more. I mean, it makes so much sense. So if people are mind blown about the 10-point step for Josh Allen, it was never about accuracy. And I think that's the more important point here is that what we're seeing is not a more accurate thrower, but a better processor, a better understanding of where to beat defenses. And that to me is, accuracy is one thing, but I never thought Josh Allen was truly inaccurate. I thought he was a guy here that couldn't fully process things in a quick enough manner to match this, his lower body and the arm all together. That's the thing now is he's moving. Everything is built right now. Like he's not a roller coaster trying to go the wrong way. Right. He's built differently. And I think now that, he's had, think about all of the people that sort of chipped away at this, right? We talk about Jordan Palmer, but let's talk about Ken Dorsey. Let's talk about Brian Dable. These guys that really, right? You know what I'm saying? So I think it's important to bring those guys into the fold and mention them because I think that
it takes a village, man. It took a village. It really did, to get Josh where he is. And you talk about that 10% jump. And when you're talking about accuracy or placement, two different things. Don't talk about completion percentage, guys. Everyone should know by now that completion percentage is how fast you're processing the coverage, what you're seeing, and getting the ball out. That has nothing to do with the accuracy or placement of a ball. They're two totally different things. Completion percentage is getting the ball to your weapons because you understand the coverage. It's not where the ball is placed in an advantageous spot to catch it and run after the catch. They're two totally different worlds. So let's put that to bed finally now because you see it far too often. And that the problem is big head media, big corporations that are on TV every day are using it as a metric for accuracy or placement, and it's just totally wrong. And if they're using it, you need to second guess the sources now, because it's just not a metric to use for accuracy or placement. And Paul, man, I appreciate the donation there, man. I started doing a little research on the Colts today, but I had to prep for this, so I'll be jumping into their film probably tomorrow, and I'll probably have something later in the week on the Colts defense. But we appreciate you tuning in this week and every week, man. You're obviously a guy that's always in the chat room. But back to Josh Allen, man. Guys, please don't use completion percentage as a metric for accuracy. I love that you brought that up, Nate, because that was one of those plays. Like, you saw him throw an inaccurate pass to Cole Beasley and last year on the same audible, and you saw a very nice placed pass to John Brown, but he also knew the coverage that he was seeing, and he went to his probably second or third option on that progression. So that is a great example of that. So on to the next play, 3rd and 5 situation here, and this is the touchdown to McKenzie. And you talked about how impressed you were with McKenzie's development and just being able to play outside of structure and having that rapport with his quarterback here. This is a play. It was just, Josh is in the pocket, but it's a play that is, extended inside the pocket. I'm sorry. He extended play inside the pocket here, not outside the pocket. And he had a free play here. And he had a free play because it's something they do every game. And it's a dummy cadence. I just figured it out today. Last year, the Bills scored against the Eagles to Cole Beasley on an audible at the line of scrimmage. I thought it was an audible. They called it Green Bay, and it was the play where Josh Allen escaped the pocket and threw to Cole Beasley across the middle. And I was forever trying to find out what this audible was, and it was called Green Bay. He said it right before they ran the play. Couldn't find it, so whatever. And I heard it a couple times in this game, one from Barkley, one from Allen, and I figured out it's a dummy cadence. It's what they use on 3rd down to draw the defense offsides like they do right there. So Josh knows he has a free play, and I mean, Green Bay, the easy correlation is this is something Aaron Rodgers is very good at. So that's the dummy cadence, and just the poise and command in the pocket. You see him pointing Diggs, telling him, hey, we got a free play, go deep. Now, basically, everyone's running verticals, and you see McKenzie peek back against Needham and then break across the middle. And, I mean, wide open. And the throw from Josh was just phenomenal from the end zone angle, right, Nate?
This is a cocky throw. This is what when Ryan Clark says arm arrogance, like this is exactly what he means. I mean, first of all, like if you're going to get the guy off sides, make a play and make it a scoring play, right? Like take advantage, score points, and be aggressive, because if you throw an interception, who cares, right? So what I love on this play is holds the ball. He's getting great protection, but then the no look throw. I mean, that's as good as it gets, right? And he just puts it up there. That's the type of throw that you just would have never seen from Josh Allen the previous 2 years. This is a thorough understanding of, because he could throw this thing like he normally does, right? Like a bullet. But look at the defender immediately in his face. He's doing a great job of shielding himself and giving himself the ability to make this throw. But, I mean, look where McKenzie is when Josh Allen throws this ball and where the ball is heading when McKenzie's running towards it. So, he's got 15, 20 yards in front of him. Yeah. So I think for me, it's like that's just an understanding of, I'm going to let my guy go run under this. I'm going to put some air on this. Just, what is it, week 3 against the Rams? This is the kind of play you see him overthrow John Brown in the back of the end zone, right? Like, it's just the improvement you see throughout the year, even from the first quarter of the season. This play is it's as sexy as it gets. Yeah,
and it's tough to really see, but watch the little hop, and that allows him to rotate through. Again, not totally on platform here, but that's
an Aaron Rodgers throw. That looks exactly like Aaron Rodgers, that throw.
Yeah, I mean, not totally. Like I said, he's not on platform, doesn't really have his base. And I love your point about, the anticipation. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I think if you look at it from the broadcast angle, I think he is scanning McKenzie coming across from his left to right here. I think he does see him, and then he does take his eyes off his target and throw to a spot. And that's what we need to see from Josh Allen. Not necessarily the no look, but throwing to a spot, because you don't want him looking at the target when he needs to throw it to the L in the back of the end zone here. You want him looking at where he wants to throw it, and you want him to be able to rotate through and have that sequencing through. And he does here, and just a great play from both those players, man. Just great work.
Sorry, I got kicked out there. We're back.
It's all good. It's all good, man. And so with that touchdown, we're going to move on to the next play here. It's a 1st and 10 situation towards the end of the first half. And again, we're winding down because they only played the first half. And there's a play that the Dolphins send the slot blitz and Josh Allen climbs the pocket and reacquires his target, the two high beater concept to the bottom of the screen. John Brown on a deep corner and deep out. Basically, Josh has to throw him flat here, but it's the two high beaters to the bottom of the screen, and that's exactly the coverage that the Dolphins drop into. Josh climbs the pocket and just gets his hips around and fires a dart to John Brown, and John Brown's happy to be back on the field. And I think, Nate, I think I speak for both of us when we say we're happy to see John Brown back and healthy.
You think? But holy cow. Like when I tweet out like, funny phrases about the throws that Josh Allen makes, like this is the definition of a piss missile. I mean, this is just the velocity on this ball is remarkable. The accuracy is remarkable. Combined, it just makes it kind of unbelievable, the play. And especially because he's on the move. He's got a defender right on his back. He's throwing to his left. It's just, it's just special stuff, man. I mean, he's making plays. This on a normal for anyone else. I mean, this is on their highlight reel. This is just another throw that kind of got mixed into a game where he had a ton of legitimate, 24 attempts, 17 to 24, I think he was in this first half. I mean, he had a full game's worth of production in 8 drives. The guy's been playing at an unbelievable level. And this is the type of throw that should tell you everything you need to know about how well Josh Allen's playing.
Yeah, and he starts off looking to his right and realizes, we're dropping to a too high safety look. I got to get to the trip side that has a too high safety beater, and he's in rhythm, and he sees that slot blitz coming off the side. And I know Dawkins and Singletary kind of screwed up a play action earlier in the game, but this one is this is a great job by the left side. Morris, Bacher, and Dawkins. You see this edge rusher dive inside, and the slot blitz is coming. Obviously, something that we saw and broke down several times this year, but watch Dawkins pass him on and then go and get a piece of the slot corner right there, right him wide of Josh Allen's spot, and then Josh escapes the pocket. Now, this is something that we talked about a couple weeks ago as well. He's starting to find those platforms outside of the pocket and reacquiring his targets and being able to throw the ball down the field. As you compared it to Mahomes, where Josh is finding these areas to reset the pocket, to reset his feet, to make throws like this outside of structure that are just special as in Mahomes and Rodgers. And maybe that's it. The ability to get his hips around. I posted this clip on Twitter today where the Patriots game where he got his hips around, rolling to his left, from the Jets game early in the year, how he missed it and how he's learned from those mistakes. I mean, these kind of throws aren't replicated by many quarterbacks in the league, and his ability to get outside the pocket and find those platforms isn't replicated by many in the league as well. And that probably was my favorite throw, just because of the velocity it had on it and the difficulty of throwing over, the confidence in throwing over that corner, because it has to be flat. It has to be, this is John Brown running a speed out, basically a speed corner, and he's got to hit him on the boundary before he goes out of bounds like that. The timing of that has to be on point, and the throw has to be, like you said, a piss missile.
Well, funny. And there's a great comment too in our comment section from T Dobbs talking about how he used to throw that rollout to the left high, and you can see the concerted effort now when he's moving to his left. He's engaging his hips, and I think he's starting to. When he's out to the left, it's becoming an advantage for him. And this is how I always play. Like, I was never very good rolling out to my right because I wasn't really able to engage my lower body. When Hail Marys for me, the first thing I'm doing is getting a little bit of, even if it's just a light jog to my left so that I can get my hips back around and really release the football. And now he's really using that as a weapon, because if he can engage his hips, which we're finding, he's already with just his arm. If he's just an arm thrower, he's still a very, very velocity-oriented quarterback being able to throw the football, right? But like when he's able to engage the lower body, moving to his left, there's just so much untapped leverage in his lower body there. And that's where you're seeing and this is a perfect example of it. That is just, that couldn't be any different from the throw that we just saw.
Yes.
Right? It couldn't be any different. And I think that's really what that suggests to me too, is just it's confidence, it's timing, it's rhythm. But now they're starting to use this rollout to the left as a weapon.
Oh my goodness. The athleticism too. We don't talk about that often. The athleticism to be full speed, like that Patriots game, rolling to your left, then able to flip your hips. Like that type of that coordination is not typically seen from quarterbacks. And I think Jordan Palmer said it today. I forget who interviewed him, But he said that, Josh doesn't have a ceiling. He is the most athletically gifted quarterback that this league has ever seen. And I mean, that's high praise from Palmer. And it's
who's worked with some studs, by the way.
Yes, and it's not to slight anyone else. It's to really show you, and compare like what he can do with his athleticism at his size. It's special stuff, man. And I'm glad that we can, break it down here in the film room.
Yeah, right. There are things of beauty, man. And anytime you get the opportunity, it's appreciating a little bit the gap that was bridged by Allen and his development. And we talked about how it takes a village, but I keep coming back to Jordan Palmer as being one of the integral pieces to this. And, when you hear him on One Bills Live say, he truly believes that he's just scratching the surface, that's not lip service. And I think when you heard people, like the two guys that were in Josh's corner more than anybody were Palmer and Dilfer. And I think, say what you will about Trent Dilfer, he may not have been a very good quarterback on the field, but the guy knows his X's and O's. The guy knows the position. He does the Elite 11 camps. He's a guy that knows the position inside and out. And if he's telling you that, and listen, I go back and I think about, he called several of these, like Trent Dilfer and Jordan Palmer. These are guys that just know the position. And although I always find the best tutors are the ones that played particularly well on the field, they were the ones absorbing everything they could from the great ones that they were around. And I think those guys are perfect examples of that.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And so this is the touchdown to John Brown, and it's another play that Josh gets up to the line. I mean, this is a lot to unpack, so stay with us. I talked about how Dable and the Bills adjusted by kind of bringing guys in and saying, okay, if you're going to show those amoeba looks, you're going to show everyone at the line of scrimmage, well, can you cover the guys on the outside? John Brown's back. Stephon Diggs is to the bottom of the screen. We're going to bring McKenzie in, and he called this play Gold Balboa. So gold is generally their live color, which means whatever comes after that, whatever play call, which is Balboa in this case, comes after the live color, that's the play they're going to run. And Josh does a great job of bringing McKenzie in. He says, hey, there's possibly a mismatch at the bottom of the screen. They don't have enough guys, you'll see from the end zone angle, to block those guys up. And we'll take a look at that protection. But look at the pump fake. Look at the eye discipline from Josh Allen, the slant and go from John Brown against Jones here. And then the throw, he just drops it in a bucket. And he's not able to make this throw to John Brown, similar to the Broncos game last year, if the protection isn't there. So let's give a little kudos. Let's do a little breakdown of the offensive line here and how Josh put McKenzie in position to help block this up, to get the ball down the field versus obviously a cover zero type look. Now, it doesn't end up being that, but it's one-on-one on the outside. That's all that we need to know. And so we'll start off with the left side. If you look at Knox, Dawkins, and Bakker, 3 offensive linemen and tight ends to the left side, but there are 4 defenders that could possibly rush. Again, pass protection is all about picking up the guys that may be able to blitz. Maybe they don't blitz. Maybe only one of them blitzes, but it's a 4-on-3. The Bills are not in good position over there if they want to push the ball down the field. To the right side, they're in good shape. It's a 4-on-4 look. They have the center, Mitch Morse, Feliciano, and Darrell Williams, and then the running back, Moss, there to cover the 4 possible rushers to the right side here. So what does Josh do? He brings McKenzie across the formation, and he knows that obviously they're showing man coverage. They're bringing Nick Needham with them, but they know now that possibly with Knox blocking, there's going to be a free rusher over here. We always talk about those hug rushes, those insert rushes, where when Knox goes to block someone, well, now he has that the guy that was covering Knox has a free reign to blitz. Well, they're expecting that here, and that's something that obviously Flores does really well, and a lot of teams have been doing it against the Bills. And so with Knox blocking, now they're obviously outnumbered, but bringing McKenzie over, now they have him covered. They have him blocked up. And you see the 4 rushers from the left side are the guys that rush. They stab and then pop out a couple of these guys right here underneath. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because now Josh has the protection to throw the ball down the field, get really nice eye discipline. Everyone's blocked up across the field, and Josh just drops it in the bucket. Just great protection up front, but it's all done by Josh Allen bringing McKenzie over and blocking him up. And we talked about how McKenzie's developed as a receiver. He obviously played a huge part on special teams in this game. And then they throw him in the block, and he's able to execute it so that they can push the ball down the field on touchdown. Just a great game from McKenzie, and
It's a practice squad player, man. I mean, that's the guy they got off the Denver Broncos practice squad, right? I mean, what a career arc for Isaiah McKenzie, getting plucked off the practice squad, ending up pretty much the 2018 season as this team's number 1 wide receiver, moving down to the team's 3rd or 4th wide receiver. Now he's slotted in at the 5th receiver and maybe having his biggest impact of his career, it's just funny how that career arc goes, right?
Yeah, it's just fun stuff from Josh Allen and the Bills offense, man. It was just one of those plays that so many things came together, right? Like so many things came together, and much like this year, right? Much like Josh Allen's 3rd year, it was something that a lot of us are going to remember for a long time, because we had a long drought, and yes, they made the playoffs a couple years ago, but that leap for Josh Allen this year, and we've tracked it the entire year. This is the final breakdown of the regular season. So what were your overall thoughts on Josh Allen this year, and maybe some areas you thought he improved the most? I know there's a lot to list, and we could probably do a whole show on the areas that he improved on, but what comes to mind initially on his season?
I'd say footwork is one thing that really stood out to me this year. He just looks like the lower body. That's the improvement for me. And because of that, you could point to 5 or 6 other things that improved because of that lower body improvement. So that's kind of what I want to go back to, is something that I think fundamentally changed a lot of other aspects of his game. And it's the sequencing, his footwork, the lower body, and I think upstairs too, between the ears. I think those are the 2 most important places for improvement of any quarterback. I think it's the one area that, you're going to see a lot of quarterbacks struggle with early on in their career. I think, we're seeing that with Tua Tagovailoa and Miami. I think, you saw yesterday or on Sunday a young quarterback that struggled to understand what the defenses was throwing out at him, even when they were throwing a lot of vanilla and depth player looks at him. I mean, Dean Marlowe, they looked like an all-pro out there. And that's just because you're a young rookie quarterback who you're going to make those types of mistakes. And, I left that game on Sunday feeling a certain kind of way, because I really hate the Dolphins. But more importantly, I wanted to see the Bills win that game for a lot of reasons. I think 13 wins compared to 12. It's one win. I get it. And at the end of the day, does it actually change anything? It wouldn't have. They still would have been in second place. They would have had the 2nd seed.
Right.
Nothing would have changed. But I feel like it changed, man, at 13 wins, man.
No, it's I agree, man. I think there are a lot of things that Josh has improved on. You talked about his footwork, his mechanics overall. He obviously put it all together, and continuity.
Dolphins are frauds.
Continuity is a big thing. It was something that was talked about just on the offensive line, but I felt like it all came together sooner or later. And that second half of the year, once they went through some of those trials and tribulations of beating zone, beating man, all these different narratives that he crushed that we always talk about. I think those were all great hurdles for him to come and overcome, and for him to experience. And that's when you add in the talent that they added to help him excel and to figure out if he was a franchise guy. When you talk about how Dable has started to click as a play caller, play designer, and all the gadgets he has, and his in-game adjustments, and his understanding of the situational football and what Josh is good at in those moments, like all of these things, that village that we talked about to make Josh Allen as good as he was this year, all came out. And it's just as a Bills fan and someone that covers Josh Allen every week as we do, man, it's been fun to break down the film with you, Nate, and everyone joining us here in the chat room. We appreciate everyone tuning in. So before we get out of here, though, let's preview this game against the Colts. So as I said, I did a little research on the Colts defense, and you mentioned at the top some of the studs that they have on that side of the ball. And they're a team, as someone mentioned in the chat room, plays a lot of zone coverage. So 77% of the time they play zone coverage. All right. That is obviously, that's really high for the league average.
That might go up to 90% this week.
4th overall. And so let's talk about the pressure and lack thereof that they can't get on the quarterback. Right. Their pressure percentage is 30.9%. That's 24th in the league. And they don't blitz all that often. They only blitz 13.3%, which is 30th. So I don't know what Eberflus's plan is going to be, but I imagine that they can't man up against the Bills all that often. I think they will mix them in there, just kind of like what Flores did, 9 out of 27 dropbacks. 33%. I think they will use that sort of ratio to kind of defend the Bills offense. I think they're going to make him play that small ball. They're going to make him try to, have long drives. And that's why we talked about that sustainability. Yes, they don't have a run game, but somehow, they're near the top in the league in time of possession. And of course, they're getting first downs. Again, every game this year, the Bills offense has had 20 or more first downs. Like, to be able to do that without a run game is telling you that they're being efficient in the run game. They have ways to convert with the run in those situations that they need to. And, those third and shorts, those fourth and shorts, but they also have, and they also have, the quarterback that is making plays on first down, as you said, and setting themselves up to stay ahead of the chains and sometimes move the chains on those early downs. Right, Nate?
Yeah, man. Listen, having that kind of success on third down, having 20 first downs a game, that indicates to me a very efficient team on first down, a team that, starts drives well, a team that, gets themselves in a position for easy conversions on second and short and third and short. So, it's just the efficiency on early downs speaks a lot to me. In this game against the Colts, Justin Houston is like their best pass rusher in this game. And nothing against Justin Houston. It's just he's not 5 years ago Justin Houston. He's current Justin Houston. And that's just not really going to give them an opportunity, I think, to get after the Bills. So I think the biggest key in this game is you talked about, dinking and dunking and being willing to take those short throws against the zone. I almost disagree. I think is ultimately that what this game is going to come down to is the offensive line. Can the offensive line give Josh Allen opportunities to extend plays against the zone? Because that's why Patrick Mahomes is such a lethal weapon against zone coverage, is those extending the plays. It's moving outside of the pocket and getting into scramble rules, because that kills the integrity of those zone coverages. So for me, if the offensive line can give Josh Allen that extra 2 seconds, second and a half this week, I think it'll be a huge advantage for them, because I think that allows Josh Allen to sort of maintain and stay on schedule, but also it allows those scramble rules to get engaged. And when that happens, it becomes really difficult for those zone coverage to maintain those zone integrity, because if you're a defender and you're watching guys break away from their route to the sideline, what do you want to do? You got to follow them. You can't give up easy throws. And that's really where I think the Bills can really hurt this Colts defense, is if they move them outside of their zones and really try to press them that way. And I think the best way to do that is you win a lot of one-on-one battles up front.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I just think that with how much zone that the Colts are going to play, I think that they're going to rely on, 4 rushers, and they're going to put, maybe even send 8 guys into coverage at times and force Josh to dink and dunk. And I think that's why the status of Cole Beasley is going to be super important. He is their zone killer. He is the outlet guy for Josh Allen underneath against these zone coverages. We saw it week in and week out during the year. And as much as Stephon Diggs has really come on the last half of the year and been the go-to guy, when you need zone beaters, it's usually Cole Beasley. So if Beasley is not able to go, what happens against these zone coverages? You just bump Stephon Diggs in the slot. As good as Isaiah McKenzie played, he'll have a role, no doubt about it. But I think you start to use those option routes with Diggs in the slot, weak side ISO, even on the strong side, get him away from Darius Leonard in those underneath coverages, and have him do work. And I think that's what the Bills went to in that second quarter a bunch. He was just running those option routes as the Dolphins were dropping out into those cover 3 looks, and Diggs was just turning around and Josh was hitting him, and he was getting, again, 10, 18 yards underneath, no problem. So I think that is, something to keep an eye on. The status of Cole Beasley, I think, is really big in this game, and you want to have that weapon for Josh Allen, that outlet guy for Josh Allen against a team that runs as much zone as the Colts do. So Josh Allen's going to have to, obviously kind of contain himself in being in that moment. Obviously in the playoffs, it's something that, he has had trouble at times, but I think this year he's done a great job of handling that. And I think that's why those primetime games actually was a great thing for this team. Not just because they won, but the big moments that he experienced, the big stage. And I think that it'll deter some of those nerves that we had seen in prior years from Josh Allen. So again, as we talked about at the beginning of this breakdown, take what they give you, get back to the basics, start off, slow, feel each other out, and see how they're going to defend you, to defend Josh Allen. And I think then that's when Dable and his staff can go ahead and throw in those adjustments that everyone talked about in the chat. And I think that it bodes well. I think it bodes well either way, regardless of the type of game plan that the Bills are really going to get, from the Colts defense. I think the Bills do match up really well against this team. And I do think, the offensive line is going to have to do a good job. And another thing, look at the pass rushers that they faced this year, Nate. And they had struggled at times against Bosa. I thought they did a great job on TJ Watt. I mean, they faced some top-tier pass rushers in better than the Buckners and the Houstons at this stage in their careers. And they did a good job. So I do think, again, there were so many building blocks and experiences for this team, not just Josh Allen. And I think they have the tools to beat the Colts this weekend.
I think they do too. I like the Bills in this matchup. I'll probably pick them in pregame. And I think the main part of that is I just think Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen have too good of a thing going right now. I like the Bills big in this game. Like I said, I know with you agree with me. We both wanted this matchup. This was the matchup I wanted. I thought it was their best first-round matchup. And, man, what excites me – I don't want to look forward, but it was funny. I was listening to the afternoon show, and it was funny listening to Mike Shope and Bulldog talk, and they were both like, we're talking about next week. We're talking about the Steelers. We're talking about who do we like. It's just funny to think about how – I don't want to say cocky. It was just funny because of how the way that it's set up right now. It looks like it's going to be Bills Chiefs. Like if you take care and handle your business, you beat the Colts. You should see the Steelers, and man, I would love the Steelers in the first round. So get them in the second round is even better to me. Man, you've got a route to the AFC Championship game that I don't think any other team has this easy of a route if it plays out the way that it does. And I think that really bodes well for this team. I think they earned that too because think about this. Earlier in the season last year, the Bills, when they were dubbed paper tigers by my man Michael Kist, and none of us liked it, but I think all of us sort of knew it because they didn't beat anybody. Yeah. This year, when Michael came on my show, I don't know, it was like week 13, week 14, he's like, I take it back. They are not paper tigers. They are good football teams. And they earned the right to have one of the easiest routes to the Super Bowl because of their regular season play.
And their aggressiveness, right? McDermott rolled the dice in this last game, played his starters for that half, and a few guys, again, played a lot more snaps than what we expected. And I was thinking today, I'm like, when Sean McDermott sets a goal, he achieves it. And there's nothing going to stop that dude. And from the moment that he changed that conservative style of we're going to ride the aggressive Josh Allen and Brian Daboll in this scheme, ride his big arm and his athleticism and his highs and his lows. As soon as he committed to that and let go and let the reins go to Daboll and Josh Allen, this team became scary because they're unpredictable. They can beat you in so many ways. And when Sean McDermott sets a goal, he's determined.
He also had his own Belichick moment this week, dude.
He did.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking. What Belichick moment he had this week, and it wasn't during the game. His Belichick moment this week, dingling that carrot in front of Chad Kelly. Come here, Chad. Tell us a little bit about that Indianapolis playbook.
Oh yeah, Intel, no doubt.
I love it. That's like the Bill Belichick classic. It's just greasy and grimy, and I love it.
And that's Sean McDermott again. He's thinking about every single thing. He's having all the bases covered.
Keys, man.
Yeah, he's so calculated with everything. And that guy could come in and give some intel on the Colts, even the smallest little details. And maybe all of those calls change. Well, okay, that's fine. Well, guess what? That is forcing them to work on that. Yeah. That is forcing them to work on that. And when those critical moments come up, maybe they call an audible that was changed and they run the wrong play. Like, all of those little things can come into play in the game. And when you're in the playoffs, you want to have all your bases covered. And as I said, Sean McDermott, when he sets a goal and when he has his mind set on something, I mean, he accomplishes his goals and he does it better than any coach that I've seen I'm going to be 38 here in a week or so. In my years as a Bills fan, he is so calculated and he has all bases covered. And we're just lucky to have him as a coach. And we're lucky to have Josh Allen, all these weapons. Great season, guys. A lot of fun doing these breakdowns with you guys. It's not the end. It's just the end of the regular season. John, we appreciate you tuning in and contributing to the show. And we appreciate everyone that's still here, up over 300 now in the chat room with us. And so, Nate, we're going to get you out of here. Obviously, we're going to get you back in the film room next week, regardless of what happens. But what do you have going on this week for the game, man?
So pregame coverage, we get kicked off at 8 a.m. So we'll roll with Bills Game Day, me and Jeremy White. That'll be at 8 a.m. Our normal schedule, it's great, 1 p.m. So nothing crazy. And yeah, looking forward to it. I'll be around for postgame, and I'll get to check the night game out on my couch. And then I will have all day Sunday to kick my feet up on my coffee table and watch football all day. And I couldn't be more excited about that. So
all day, man. Nate, it's been great doing this film room with you the entire season and the last few years. Hey, guys.
I always say, dude, listen, like I always say, one of our first things, we broke down Nathan Peterman. We tried selling ourselves on Nathan Peterman. We've come a long way. We've come a long,
no doubt about it.
way.
And so has this team, right? And so has this team. Expectations are a lot higher nowadays than they were back then years ago. And we appreciate everyone tuning in. Another 45 minutes. We're going to have the Hoof live on the channel. So go ahead and take a break. Go grab another beer. Sit down and watch the boys on the Hoof live at 9 p.m. And then tomorrow, Greg and Aaron will have the game previews. And then, of course, we'll have Disguise coverage later in the week. We'll have the draft, the Cover One draft with Christian Page, Russ Brown, Zach Hicks doing a podcast later in the week. And then, of course, the Hoof again on Friday. So we have you covered here at Cover One. We got you. So if you want your Bills content, you want your draft content, you came to the right place. We appreciate everyone supporting us this entire year. And we'll be back next week. Thanks for joining us in the film room again for this Josh Allen breakdown.